final region we'll be talking about is, of course, the South Regional, one that's very hitting close to home here for Aztec fans. Of course, this is the quote unquote region of upsets. We saw the 15 seed
Mhm.
Princeton Tigers not only defeat Arizona, but they also continued on and they moved on. They took down Missouri as well. They are heading to the Sweet 16. Another 15 seed from New Jersey moving to onto the Sweet 16 after St. Peter's did it last year. And then, of course, we saw the 13 seed, the Furman Paladins, take down Virginia in one of the crazier finishes of the weekend. And then, of course, unfortunately for Furman, great news for San Diego State, but the Aztecs did advance to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2014. Looking at the matchups, we have the 1 seed Alabama Crimson Tide facing off against the 5 seed San Diego State Aztecs. And then on the other side, the 6 seed Creighton Blue Jays taking on the Cinderella story, the Princeton Tigers, the 15 seed. Let's start with you, Coach. Considering we've got San Diego State here, what were your thoughts on the South Regional?
Yeah, South Regional, yeah, like you said, had all those games that had the upsets. My team, I picked Arizona to get out of the South, and that didn't happen. I mean, Princeton, um, everyone was talking about 30 years ago, Princeton being UCLA, and it's not the same Princeton team as it was back then. And I was really disappointed in a Mountain West team in Utah State not getting through Missouri and whatnot. And Princeton was able to get through them and get into the Sweet 16. I think I, I kind of forgot myself. Creighton has a big 7 footer. They have a couple 6'8", 6'9" forwards. They have a dynamic point guard. They have a slash combo guard that's pretty good. And they're coming out of a conference that I bragged about being one of the toughest in the nation all season long in the Big East, and they were able to get through. I didn't actually have them against Baylor. I thought Baylor was going to outmuscle them, and just didn't happen. I guess I didn't watch enough Big 12 basketball to have a good judgment on it, which I kind of admitted all season long in the podcast. I wanted to go Furman. I really wanted to go Furman. I didn't know how well they scored, but I knew how UVA struggled scoring, but could just play defense. And this time of the year, your defense has to shine, and it just didn't. I think this is the toughest region that has some really strong defensive teams. Creighton's a solid defender. Bama, who was known as just a scoring machine in season past, has a higher defensive metric than our own San Diego State team that everyone knows is a defensive minded team. And then West Virginia is a defensive minded team. So this region really had some strong defensive teams out there. And to all of our surprises, Princeton came through, Creighton snuck in. Um, Everyone had the number one overall team, Alabama, getting through. And San Diego State, they look dynamic you know, against the Furman. What were they? 16? No,
13.
13. They beat a 13 team like a five supposed to beat a 13 team.
Mhm.
After they got through a tough uh, Charleston team. I mean, it was a game for a bit.
Yep.
Then I think they just settled in, and the maturity shown, and they were able to get through that first round, and then really, really rely on their experience and confidence getting through Furman, a 13 team. So they beat two teams that they should have beat, and the matchup next against Alabama is going to be the true test. Now, if mature men, could execute and defend confidently against this Alabama team. Maybe Alabama's team's youth isn't ready for it. Maybe there's more distractions that we hadn't heard so far up until now that might come out, and you never know what San Diego State could put forth. But it's going to be an exciting Friday. Um, I like Creighton to get through against Princeton. I just think they're a little bit deeper. They're harder to match up against. But I would not be surprised if Princeton pulls it through just the way they look these first two games, which is fantastic for an Ivy League school, non-scholarship. And there's some San Diego ties to that team, so I'm not mad about that either.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting time for the Aztecs to face the number one team in the tournament, the number one overall seed. Very interesting. That'll be a huge Friday matchup. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the South Regional?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Princeton, you got to tip your cap to these guys. They're playing some
Mhm.
good ball, but I don't think they're going to get past Creighton. Creighton was a lot bigger and deeper than I thought they were, as Coach was saying. I'm watching them the other night, and I thought Baylor was going to give them everything that they could handle and that Baylor would prevail. And it just didn't happen. And the more I watched it and watched, went back and watched some highlights, Creighton's a good ball team. I just remember during the middle of the season, we were asking ourselves, "Oh, what's going on with Creighton?" One week they're there, one week they're not there. They were kind of inconsistent. So, but again, we're doing the 6 game season now. We're playing the 6 game season. 1/3 of it's done. Let's move on to the second third and see what happens. Watch for Creighton. I think they're going to go ahead and advance, get past Princeton. The Aztecs look really good the first 2 games, but sometimes the draw can work against you. Charleston was not the competition that I thought they would be, or that a lot of people thought they might be. San Diego State handled them very well. San Diego State also took care of business against Furman. But again, 12 seed, 13 seed. I hope it's not just total shock and awe when they get on the court against the likes of Alabama, because I remember early in the season when Gonzaga was trying to get their feet and they had that Saturday national game against Alabama. And oh my gosh, that team can play ball, hence the number one seed. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be more than the Aztecs are ready to handle. Watch for Alabama to move on. So we're going to end up seeing Creighton and Alabama. That's going to be a great game too.
Yeah, it's a huge matchup and a huge test for the Aztecs. I know there's a lot of people, saying, "Oh, the Aztecs, all they have to do is get to 70 points." That's a big ask from them. Let's be honest. Even getting the win over Charleston and Furman, there were times against Charleston early on where, my goodness, it was. I think I texted you all. It's kind of like watching a baby giraffe take its first steps. It's very awkward and it doesn't look natural at times. That's the way San Diego State looks on offense at times. And you can survive for 2 or 3, 4 minutes against the College of Charleston's and against the Furmans of the world. But in those moments, those mistakes, that turns into an 8 to 10-0 run against teams like Alabama and being that good. I think a good comp would be what the Aztecs looked like against Arkansas in the Maui Invitational. Now, I do think Alabama is a step above Arkansas, but obviously SEC team, similar in the way they play, and then maybe even in terms of talent, how the Aztecs looked against Arizona in Maui. And unfortunately, that wasn't a great look. But at the same time, that was early. I think there were a lot of lot of questions that need to be answered. The Aztecs are definitely better defensively, and I think they have a lot more veteran leadership on that court. Will that be enough? Unfortunately, I don't think so. I think Alabama does enough to get the win. If the Aztecs can keep this game in the 50s, then hey, game on. I just don't know how you stop this dynamic um, situation in Alabama. We're not big fans of the Brandon Miller saga, but you know what? He's a hell of a basketball player at the end of the day. And I think that they go out and they do get the job done. On the other side of things, Princeton, what a fantastic story. I mean, you completely busted my bracket, so I can't love you too much. But at the same time, it's been a great story. And I would love for it to continue, but like you said, I just think Creighton too battle tested, too much, fire, and they're not going to get snuck up on. That's what I think we see a lot of times in the first to the second round. You get one day to kind of game plan or one day to figure out what's going on. Missouri probably didn't do a whole lot of film on Princeton. It was probably a lot of looking at what Arizona does. It's human nature, right? You would expect, hey, look, if we're only going to have 24 hours to prepare for Arizona, let's look ahead to them, or let's expect them to win. Probably did a lot of film on Arizona, not a whole lot on Princeton. Well, that's not going to be the case. Creighton, they know the next 4 days they're going to be staring at Princeton film and watching how they go. So you're not going to get that kind of that surprise factor, if you will. So I do think Creighton gets the job done. I hate to say it, I do think Alabama will win this region. Once again, all the drama off the court notwithstanding, they look like the best team in the region. And at the end of the day, if you are a fan of the sport, you do want the best team to continue on. But it's going to be very, very interesting. And ideally, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope the Aztecs go out and get the job done and become the first San Diego State Aztec team to make the Elite Eight. But it's going to be very, very tall task, up there with kind of taking down a guy like Kemba Walker from, whatever, 10, 12, 13 years ago in that UConn matchup. But